All right, so this is my first in a four-part series of talking about the story of the Buddha with children. Lee, this is my first time recording any of these. I don't know why I just said that. Obviously, you know that. So I expect this fully to be a really terrible rendition of all of this, down to the fact that I'm sort of like silhouetted against a bright background, which is just it's the best situation for the time being. My hair is unkempt, and my children may run in grabbing my attention, but I thought I'd just go for this to make this useful for us to get this out here, etc. We can try to do quality assurance the next time that we do one of these. Okay, so this is the story of the Buddha, first part of 4. So Buddha chapter 1. So the story starts when a king and a queen have a son. They named him Siddhartha. His mother tragically dies. His father is really interested to see what his son is going to become. And so his father, who is again the king of this giant realm, calls for a holy man to come tell the future of his child. And the holy man reports back that one of either two things will happen. One, Siddhartha will see suffering, and he'll become obsessed with suffering. He'll become obsessed with ending suffering and ending unhappiness. And he will obsess about this, and he'll lead the whole world to happiness. Or, option number 2, Siddhartha will never see suffering. And then instead, he's going to become a great ruler and a great conqueror. So the king, his father, makes the decision for him. He says, my son can make people happy when he's old. I want him to be a ruler. I want him to keep the whole kingdom in our family. So the king decides to never let his son see suffering. The best way he can figure out for that to happen is to keep his son inside of the house and give his son a life of total happiness, of total pleasure, to allow his son to do whatever he wants to do. And so, what did he give his son? Well, what would you do if you? How could you be happy inside of your house? Could you be happy if you never left your house? What if it was a really big house? What would there have to be inside of that house to keep you happy? What do you think the king could have put inside of his house to keep Siddhartha happy? These are some of the questions that we can ask the kids. And they can imagine, right? Like, I can imagine tons of amazing food, and I can imagine video games forever. I can imagine lots of movies and TVs, and I can imagine friends, and I can imagine loved ones, my parents, and loving me, and there could be puppies and kitties and whatever. The secret here, I think, is to get the kids to go really all out and imagine this life of luxury for themselves, but all inside of one single house. And then you can ask the questions. Okay, so imagine that Siddhartha had all of these things. We don't know exactly what he had, but imagine he had all of these things that we said. Do you think that he was happy? Have the kids answer that question. And then back to the story. Siddhartha wasn't happy. He had all those things that we talked about. He also married a beautiful woman. He also had a beautiful baby boy. But none of these things made him happy. He felt like there was something missing in his life. And so he decided to disobey his father. He decided to sneak out of the house, the one thing he wasn't allowed to do, and to see the outside world. What was his father hiding from him? So he asks his chariot driver to drive him out late one night. A question for the kids at this point might be, is it right to do something that your parents tell you not to do? So he sneaks out at night. He says, oh my gosh, this is the world. This is amazing. Look at these plants and trees and blah, blah, blah. You can ask the kids, what do you think the Siddhartha saw for the very first time? He sees all these things, and he sees all of these people everywhere, and the world is in some ways more glorious, more exciting than anything he ever imagined before. But he then sees a sick person. And he goes, oh my gosh, what is wrong with that man? He asks his chariot driver, his charioteer, that. And his charioteer said, oh, that person is sick. At this point in the story, it might be useful to go into details about what people look like when they're sick, right? So the man can be coughing, the man can be sneezing, the man can be wheezing, the man can have like phlegm that he's coughing up all the time, the man can be unkempt, the man can be really sore and he's not moving very well, he could be emaciated, whatever you want to do, his hair can be falling out, whatever you want to do, make the sickness really real. And so Siddhartha is so sad, he's so sad. He says, well, I'm not going to get like that, am I? And his charioteer said, of course you are. Everybody gets sick. No, the Siddhartha's really worried. He comes back to the palace and he tells his father everything. His father is, oh my gosh, I can't believe I let you get out. I will make this palace happier so that you do not need to experience this again. and everything gets even happier. More parties, more deliciousness. But Siddhartha says it's not enough, and I see these people, and they're kind of fighting with one another, even inside of the palace. I need to get out of here. I need to see what the rest of the world is like. So he goes out again. His charioteer takes him out, and this time he sees an older person, and he sees the man, and you can talk about what a really old person looks like, hobbling. You can talk about the man being really physically weak, again, like the hair coming out, can't see very well. And Siddhartha says, "What is wrong with that man?" And the charioteer says, "Well, the man is old." Siddhartha says, "What? That's not going to happen to me, is it?" And the charioteer laughs at him and says, "Of course it is. Everyone grows old." Siddhartha's panicking now. He comes back. He's depressed. He tells his father all about that. His father goes, "I can't believe you left. I need to make this place even happier so you never want to leave again." Siddhartha sneaks out a third time. He's just obsessed about this. And he sees lying in the ditch a dead person. At first he saw a sick person, and then he saw an old person, and now he sees a dead person. He says, "What is wrong with that person?" And his charioteer says, "That person is dead." And Siddhartha says, "Well, it's not going to happen to me, is it?" And the charioteer says, "Yeah, that happens to everyone." The charioteer can't believe that Siddhartha didn't know about these things, but of course Siddhartha has been kept protected. And so Siddhartha comes back and he asks his father, "Father, is this true?" And his father says, Yeah. But don't think about those things. Think about the happiness we can have inside of this beautiful building. It's great." And Siddhartha really tries, but he can't get these horrible things out of his head, and he knows that these things are coming. And no amount of happiness inside of the palace can stop these things. He sneaks out a fourth time. And that time he sees a man who has his head shaved, who's wandering wearing rough robes, looks poor, who's wandering with a little bowl to ask for money. But that man has a smile on his face. That man seems to be happy. Siddhartha comes back to the palace and says, "I've got to break out of here. I've got to become a person like that. I've got to become happy." So I think that's where the story for today ends. Chapter 1 ends. My thinking about all of this is that when we tell it, we need to go between the pain and the pleasure. The binary opposite, Egan's tools here, is the pain and the pleasure. And note that we can really kind of riff more with this story than we can with most other stories, because this story seems to have been told by the historical Buddha as a story. Just the Buddha told this as a fictional story, so we can kind of go wild with this. And then, so yeah, that's where the story ends, and without any further ado, I'll